Hello, welcome to Swatches live stream. I'm Clint, this is Diana, and we are both professional art instructors and illustrators. We are coming from Swatches Art Academy, and we appreciate you coming out here to hang out with us as we review some submitted art today. Now, this art is coming in from the Swatches Discord. Let me get OBS out of the way there. So if you are interested in submitting your art, you can just go right here, swatchesdiscord.com. And you'll want to obviously make an account if you're not having a Discord account yet. And you want to go to the video critique submissions under the Your Art section. Anyone is free to do this, all right? Any style, skill level is
You don't have to
fine.
be our student.
No.
It's open to anyone.
Yeah. So if you have further questions about that, feel free to put them into the chat. Along with any other art-related questions, we're happy to take those during the stream. Otherwise, we are going to be looking at these 6 portfolios and trying to give as many helpful tips and direction as possible.
So we know there have been quite a few people posting their portfolios in the last couple of days. So if anyone watching, just to know how this works, we usually do 6 at a time in each video so that the videos don't run a super long time. So we're going through them in order by which they were posted. So
Yeah.
we have 6 to do today that we're already waiting, and on the next video we'll go through the next 6 and so on until we get to everyone's portfolio. So if you posted recently and you don't get a portfolio review today, don't worry, you will be reviewed in the next video or the one after.
Yeah, live streams generally go for about 90 minutes, depending on what we have to all chat about with the art. Good to see everybody here. Morgane, we got Verena, Olivia, Edge, some others.
Hey.
Thank
Hi,
you for
Olivia.
joining.
Hi, Verena.
Okay, so let's go ahead and just jump into it. The first one we have here is Enoch. And Enoch said, you're from CG Verse graduate. All right, so you're obviously fairly serious about your studies. Making your way to freelancing for environment design and keyframe art. You finished 2 keyframes in an unfinished draft that you're struggling to polish to the same level as the others. The first, let's see, the image title, Samurai at Peace, is the first solo artwork. The other 2 had assistance.
That one.
Yeah, so I pulled those off here. So this is your Samurai at Peace image. I'm going to try to remember to keep things out of the bottom corner where the webcam is. And then the gate and the prisoner. All right. Now, what we're seeing from this is there was a fair amount of skill going involved in these. Anything that you have full scenes, characters, vehicles, background environments, foreground environments, that's a lot of complexity to deal with. Obviously, if you're aiming for keyframes, that is 100% something that you have to do. At this point, I feel like you're maybe stretching yourself a little thin and not putting enough attention on every element for this. Now, I'm also going to say that we have looked over these, before the live stream and put together some notes, which I actually need to bring up on my other monitor. Put them up there somewhere, but I have windows everywhere.
Oh, right there.
Yeah, there we go. So,
Oh, there's people from all over the world watching. Hi, everybody.
yeah, welcome everybody.
Very cool.
So I'm going to just minimize that until we need it, and I'll bring that back up. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to take a little bit more time on Enoch's portfolio here and talk to him, but also want to just talk to the wider audience on the topics of the kind of art that you're aiming for. Because you mentioned right here the 2 things, which is mainly environment design and keyframe art. Now, there seems to be some confusion or just a lack of clarity on maybe what both of these are. These are definitely have some overlap between the two, but I definitely would suggest to anyone, including Enoch, to focus on one or the other. The other thing to be really aware of is in the industry, certain things are more available, certain positions are more available to certain artists depending on their experience level.
Kind of talked about this a little bit last week, right? Where you kind of choose your opponent.
Yes. That's very much the case that I'm seeing here. So to Enoch, I'll say, right now, in my opinion, you do not have a competitive portfolio for keyframes. All right, because if you're doing keyframes, you're getting immediately compared to a lot of these other people in the industry. I pulled off a couple just so everybody knows what like keyframe will look like. So Dennis Chen, I don't know him, but I saw him on ArtStation. He did keyframes for a lot of big projects such as the game Spider-Man 2, right? Beautiful big scenes. This is what people are going to have in mind in the industry when you say, I do keyframes. This is what they're looking for. This is the expectation. So if you meet that, great. But if you don't meet that, that's actually a strike kind of against you. And that it would be better to do something a little more simple at a higher level than to do something at a higher level but not hit the same quality.
I mean, this is asking for a lot, right?
Yes.
It's lighting, framing, narrative, besides all the technical things like perspective and design. And you're basically setting up a scene and lighting it. And there's usually action involved. Like, there's a lot going on.
So people new to the art scene, to clarify, keyframe art is this generally quite realistic art where it is setting a depiction of a key moment within either a game or a film. And it wants to exactly capture the overall tone, lighting, arrangement, feeling that scene is supposed to be. So it may not be in the game that everything is arranged in this exact same position, but all the factors will be there. This big ship will be there. The bridge will be there. This is probably the same time of day. This is the feeling of the kind of action. There's probably going to be explosions at some point during the fight. And they create this particular kind of image so that all the different parts of the creative team, the people doing the light, the people doing the modeling, the people doing the positioning of the characters,
usually animation involved too.
Whatever each team is, they all look at this one image and they go, okay, essentially that's what everybody's aiming for. So for that reason, keyframes basically direct a huge amount of the creative process, and they become the creative direction for a whole group of people. For that reason, they are basically always given to experienced senior artists, because those artists are really kind of having the reins put in their hands of a likely multi-million-dollar project. So Spider-Man 2, I'm sure, was tens of millions of dollars to produce this game. It was one of the biggest games of the year. So this is the show Wednesday that came out on Netflix. And these are keyframes of the Nevermore Academy, I guess, the school that she went to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very, very well done. Interesting location. And that was an expensive show to do. So they want to make sure they really, really know. For that reason, I'm hesitant to suggest to any student that is somebody who's not already working full-time professionally to aim for that as their first goal, because even if you have fairly strong skills, you're really working against the system where your clients know that you don't have industry experience and you're asking them to put this big project in your hands.
And the clients also, these clients, they tend to have a really clear idea of what this is supposed to look like, this artwork. And so they're looking for this. And they
Yeah.
can afford really high-end artists. So that's what, when we talk about choosing your opponent, maximizing your chances of getting hired, it's like you don't want to pit yourself against these guys. And you may think you're not competing with these guys, but the only companies that are going to hire for art like this are these companies, and they're going to hire these guys. So you are competing with these guys.
Yeah. In a very real way, they're going to start a project and they're going to start looking for, in this case, a keyframe artist to do work for them. And they're going to look at portfolios and they're going to see artist A, artist B, artist C, and they literally are going to compare against them. Okay, so that's touching on just keyframe. Let's talk about environment design. Now, environment design is where, it's pretty straightforward. You're designing the things in the environment. However, I think the misconception is sometimes that people equate it to environment illustration, that they're simply they're painting a version of the scene, right? But that's not quite environment design. So let's pull up example. Okay. So if you want to know some good examples, just go out to ArtStation. And like over here, you could click on this and you could look up environment concept art and design. So here's environment design, or anybody at least who tagged their piece as that. Some of them not so much, but I pulled up this one. This one is from a student of New Edge concept art. They are one of the leading, I think, schools for concept art currently in industry. And this is a piece that this student worked on along with a group of other students. Each student, to my understanding, took a piece of this location on this bigger project, and then they realized that area. So Harold here did the shuttle hangar and the motorcycle. This is environment design. What you're doing is literally having to design every aspect of this location. Every every platform, every staircase, every barrel and crate and vehicle, the loading systems, all of this. It means you're going to have orthographic views, top-down views, side views, front views, back views. You're going to lay it out like it was a real location, because you don't know how it needs to be used. Somebody else might set up the arrangement or the shot a little different than you have in mind, so you just need to flesh out everything. Designing the vehicles, the major props, like I said, the motorcycle, all right? Maybe that would be featured in the shot somewhere. Doing the full breakdown.
The call-outs.
Yeah, the call-outs, talking about has a stabilizer system, I guess. Did some concept art to get to the shape there. Here's some inspiration and details they took from it. This is environment design. This is where you are obscuring no information and you're resolving all information. And if that's what you want to do, that's cool. All right. There's a lot of need for
There's a lot of work available for people who want to do this.
And I would especially recommend go listen to Feng Zhu's videos.
The last few of Design Cinema are very pertinent.
Yeah, because that's his big thing, is environment, set design, that sort of stuff. Now, all of that, let's go back to Enoch's work here and take a look. All right, so right now you just have that one on the page.
But there's more things in here, I think.
Is there more things in here? Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay. So here we have the main scene, and you usually want that if you're doing keyframe. You need one finished scene. And this is good. All right, I like seeing this. You've got turnaround views of the characters in simple lines, flat tones. That's fine. the gun, the vehicle, some shape stuff for the vehicle. I feel like you have some of the right components in here, but one, the layout is kind of compromising it because you're getting something as big and complex as the spaceship and kind of relegating it to this one little corner spot. When really that could be as big as the character. Like that's something you could definitely feature if you put time in designing that. It would also be nice to have not just a top view, but a side view as well of this vehicle. And a 3D view of the gun would also be nice. I would understand that you probably did this for your project to do some shape language stuff to work out the background buildings, but these are so rough. I wouldn't bother putting them in the portfolio because you're not really designing anything yet. This is just like first step rough sketches stage. Okay, and then we're coming down here. There was several reasons I actually feel that this one is superior to your final. And that's because the final has an unnecessary amount of noise. You've just got like texture, brushy, grainy, artifacts, random dot stuff. Edges are getting fuzzy without them actually being out of focus. Remember, for a keyframe, as we saw on these other ones, they're trying to be as clear as possible. They're trying to obscure as little as possible. Everything is getting nice and clean, unless there was a good reason that there was some smoke, coming out somewhere, fire, whatever. But generally speaking, they're trying to keep it really sharp so that everyone knows exactly what they're looking at. So for that reason, I would like to maybe see it kept a little cleaner. These are positives to see. Mm-hmm. These sorts of, you can't really call them thumbnails. I mean, they're a little more involved in the composition concepts. These are great to see. A lot of artists, especially the more the junior artist is, the less of these they have tendency to do. But this is where the scene is either made or unmade. Whether it works or it doesn't work is at this stage right here. You went through some good variations, but I'm going to push back on you a little bit, Enoch. All right, I don't know you. You've never been my student. So I'm going to be a little harder on you than maybe I would normally be with somebody, but that's already because you have some pretty strong skills and you're aiming at some pretty tough stuff. Because right now, this isn't fulfilling being an environment design because there's too much that is unclear. Like, I can't make these buildings out. They've not been designed. They're basically just a shape. Like, there's a lot of stuff on this ground and in these foreground things that are either so dark or so blurry that I don't know what the design is. So again, those are kind of knocks against it being a good keyframe. The other thing is, if you're going to do keyframe, one of the main things you're trying to do is establish very accurate, probably cinematic lighting that really helps to tell the story and to push the focal points. Right now, we're not really getting that. And as an image, we're getting a split focus where a lot of the contrast is right here. This is like a big dominant shape in the scene with a high amount of contrast, and it wants to draw my eye. But I also know as a human, this is probably the focal point.
There's something happening over here. Yeah.
So this is splitting, and the visual storytelling is not working together to tell the scene. Okay. Now, okay, we'll go into Photoshop for a minute, and we'll look at that. These are good to do. I do suggest to spend more time at this stage if that's possible. If this was done for some kind of class or something, I'm sure you had a limited amount of time. You did as many as you could, and then you had to move on. Make sure that when you're doing a scene like this, that you're trying to lean into whatever that scene's point is. I mean, what is this scene about? The scene is about, I assume, this prisoner being drugged off to be loaded into the ship. That would be my guess. Okay. So we want to make sure everything is kind of going in that direction. And right now, it's not quite. And I'm mainly focusing on just talking about this image right now. Do you want to look at these other ones first? I'll mention these other ones first, and then we'll go into Photoshop. So something we're seeing on both of these is that there is a significant amount of the canvas that is being just blurred for no effective reason. So we've got, I assume this is the main character in this scene. Again, this is the exact same thing we had on the other scene. A split focal point. He's bigger, and I feel like he's supposed to be the main character, but he's out of focus, and he's in dark shadow, and the smaller person in the background is sharper with more color, and that makes her feel like the focal point. And then also all of the lines converge down to her, making her feel the focal point. But I know intellectually that's supposed to be this guy.
She's also not doing anything, so our eye is directed down there, but then we don't get any indication of what's going on.
I'm not picking on these things just to pick on you, Enoch. I'm picking on this because if you're aiming to do keyframes, this is the stuff you have to nail. This is what the clients are going to be looking for. You to think through each one of these aspects and nail these things.
Right now, it's 3/4 of the image is blurred.
Yeah, we got all of this blurred, and there isn't a solid reason for that. You've got this, I assume it's a plant, blurred. Again, not really a solid reason for that. And we get in the same thing here. I would say somewhere around 3/4 of this image is dark, out of focus, blurred, and with chromatic aberration. You may not mean it this way, but that can come across as I'm trying to hide stuff visually.
Or I just don't want to define it.
Either I don't want to be bothered having to define it, or, it just doesn't come across with the same feeling of I am committed to resolving everything about this image so that it is as clear as possible so that anyone on the team could look at this and know exactly what the expectation is for every piece of this image. Mm-hmm. You can get away with this more in illustration. All right, there's some more wiggle room there. But for keyframes, not as much. Okay. Now, the general lighting setup on this, I think, works. We do need some more lights out here. We do need less blurring, less out of focus. All right. But the overall lighting of lightning bolt come down. I guess this is like Thor or Odin or something would be my guess. I don't know, some lightning bolt coming down on the sky and people charging in. Okay, I'm fine with that. Again, like on this one, I'm unclear what the story beat is here and why it's so dark here and lit there. Right. And another thing is when we're putting this much atmosphere inside a building, that's kind of odd. That in the distance between where the camera is and literally the back of the room, there is so much atmosphere that I can't see it. Okay, now let's look at this one, open this one up. So say that we had this. The first thing we want to do is make sure that we have a composition that conveys the story beat and puts the focal points in the right area. This is what you would be considered as organizing, visual organizing of the scene. Okay, would be the right way to say it. And creating what you would consider image hierarchy. This is the most important thing. So in a similar way that we do it with like, okay, let me make this better. So I would say like 1, this is the most important thing in the scene. This is perhaps number 2. These guys, I'd say 3. Then the rest of the scene just kind of is all delegated to like 4. Maybe this is 4, whatever this is, because right now I'm not sure what that is, but maybe that could be more interesting. And then I'll just say 5 for like all the environment. So it should kind of have that read as we're going through it. I sketched over it earlier just to save everybody time from having to watch me. And say we put this over here. Now I sketched this. It's a little, it's a rough, obviously. The idea being that put them in the foreground. They are much bigger in the canvas. Camera is still low. All right, we're still keeping the level down here. But these guys are nice and close, and they're much higher than the camera. This is something that a lot of more junior artists don't think to do, is to let them go over that camera height and really get the idea that these guys are going to be moving into this scene like this. So they are now the biggest single element in the scene. That makes them number 1. They're humans. That also puts the focus there.
Helps you connect with the emotional aspect of the story. So that we're closer, we can actually see the face on the prisoner. He's upset.
We're close enough that we can read his emotion. Okay. The other thing is we can lean into the prisoner aspect. So like maybe he's, I don't know what they're called, but they can put like the collars on the prisoner, then they have like a cable connected down to their belt. Yeah, some sort of chain. So you know this guy's very uncomfortable and he's kind of being dragged away.
They're handcuffed to the chain. They got chains on, going down to the feet, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So we've got that going on. We've gone ahead and landed the aircraft, the spacecraft, because otherwise it's, again, kind of a split thing of these people are in motion, that thing's in motion. They're about to walk under a ship that's landing. So we can just put it there. But in order to make the environment more interesting, and this goes for any kind of environment design, like one of the first things that you do in any kind of environment design to make it more interesting, have multiple levels. Don't keep it flat. All right. So we go, okay, well, there's a elevated area where the ship is landed there.
Maybe like a loading ramp.
Yeah. And you got like some sort of loading ramp here. Probably not steps because you would need to have wheels be able to go up it. And then over here, instead of just a random box, like this could be where other prisoners are being held. Right, so we've got this, we've got bars.
Or there's other maintenance guys standing out there. I don't know.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe they could have like a glass window with bars and you can see some other prisoners waiting to be like, loaded into the ship. Because what we need to convey immediately is this is a prison security operation, right? And we're not really getting that. And once you know what that is, it's the idea that you have that key word or 2 words, whatever it is. And this is like prisoner transport is kind of what you're going for.
It's really just committing to that.
Yeah.
Because if you don't commit to one specific idea for what's going on, like this is a prison situation, he's being loaded onto a prisoner ship.
Yeah.
If you don't say that and you say, no, he's just being loaded onto a ship, it ends up being a generic sci-fi scene. Mm-hmm. The thing that keeps it from being generic is really being specific with the context.
Yeah. So then what you want to do is look for visual cues. That's what we talked about last week as well. So what can we do? And visual elements that we can put in the scene to immediately convey to the audience this is related to a prison operation.
This is a bad thing that's happening.
Yeah. It's showing people behind bars. That's very clear. It's showing people restrained. That's going to do it. Making sure that the armed security guards, maybe even we have a closer one, not as close as they are, but maybe we have another one standing up on this raised area, and he's over here on the corner, and you can see his gun fairly clearly, right? I still like the idea of these guys at the control panel. I think there should be a control panel there. Maybe that's where they can talk to the ship or whatever. So you got that guy standing there at that control panel back there. And then we want to make sure that the ship, lean into it where the ship looks like a prison ship. Like, make it maybe more blocky. Again, put like bars on the windows. I know it's kind of redundant on a spaceship, like who wants to bust out of the window, but we've got to find a way of showing like at least,
or put some like military stenciling on the side of it or something like that,
like grading patterns on the manifolds that have a kind of bar design to them. We want to make it like it doesn't look like a comfortable ship to go to, right? This isn't a luxury cruiser or something. And then I blocked in some basic values. Let's see. So, something like that. Red lights. The idea that they just left some doorway or next to some building, we got a red light kind of shining up. I'm thinking it's kind of like a runway with planes. That they've got lights. Oh, that's multiplying. They've got lights, embedded on the ground, kind of like a theater, I guess. And you got these red lights here. Maybe you got lights coming down this thing. And you've got some lights, and maybe they're not red, but maybe they are, that shine up on the underneath side. So, again, underlighting things makes them feel...
menacing?
Yeah. Be the right word. And so you can see this. The top of it's all kind of dark. Right, and you can see these shapes and maybe an open gangway or something on the ship, right? And then you got some atmosphere and stuff back there. And these lights are just shining up so that they can see the ship and it knows where to land, right? It helps guide them down. And maybe you see like a third one back there sticking up. That's really bright back there for some reason. I didn't. Somebody's turned on. It's not supposed to be that bright. Anyway, so this is how I would suggest approaching it. I think you've got the technical skills to do this.
Got to prioritize the narrative.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Rather than cool ship silhouette in the sky. It looks like you prioritize that instead of really leaning into your story as you defined it. We're just going off of what you said.
And kind of coming back to your original thing, and then we'll move on, which is if you want to focus more on keyframe, that's a fine direction to go long term. In the short term, if you want to start trying to find some more work, I'd suggest start just doing more illustration, okay? And then as your skills improve, your contacts improve, all that stuff, then you can start looking for more keyframe options.
I would even suggest also working from a brief.
Yes. Yeah.
So that you don't end up with these kind of ambiguous scenes like the samurai. It's really not clear what the point of that scene is. Mm-hmm. And I think if you had a brief that was written for this purpose, then it would be easier for you to interpret that. But even like if you don't, okay, just to let everybody know, I don't know, it'll probably be another 2 weeks before we release the portfolio kit. So I don't want to give a date, I'm not sure, but we're going to have these coming out that have all these briefs already created for scenes like this. I'm not saying that you have to get our kit. I'm just letting everyone know that they're sometimes hard to find, and we are producing them because of that. But if you don't want to wait, I'm not suggesting that you wait. Just pick up any well-known story, like at New Edge and at Sin Studio, they do this, right? Where they pick a well-known story like Treasure Island, or something, a story that everyone kind of knows, and pick a scene. It could even be a scene from, Harry Potter, but just don't go watch the movie when you do the keyframe, when you do the illustration. And pick a scene and just compose it, really leaning into the narrative. That's if you want to do this for a living, that's kind of what you got to practice.
Yeah. Okay. Hopefully that is, you can get some insight from that, and hopefully everyone else got something out of that. I know that we spent a little time on it. I would love to see you continue doing your work. I think you have a lot of good start, but we really need to hone in on like what the goal is and what the next reasonable step is. Okay, so the next person we're going to go to is Nate. All right, Nate.
Nate. Is Nate here? Say hi if you're here, Nate.
Yeah, if anyone who is getting reviewed is here live, definitely give us a shout out. Let us know. And if you have questions or want any clarifications about something we're saying, drop it in as we're taking a look at your work. All right, so we said I'm right about to start looking and applying for pro work.
Oh, Nate's here. Hi, Nate.
Hi, Green. All right. And I really like a once over of my portfolio to see if I can search out any weaknesses or things holding me back. I would love to do both illustration for card art and books as well as content art for movies and games. Okay, so this is another one before we look at the work is the goal. Goals are so important. It's knowing what the destination is. It's like if we're going to go on a vacation, you don't go, well, Algarve or Madeira. Like we got to pick one, all right? Because it's going to take us a different direction.
Anything. The thing is, when you add more than one goal, it's harder to get good at all those things, to get competitive. And that's why we recommend just focusing on one thing and getting really competitive at that, so that at least you can start working, get some momentum. Well,
you're just splitting your time, and it takes twice as long to get competitive at two things at the same time. All right, so let's glance through these first, and then we'll kind of give a read. Initially, I have a pretty positive reaction to this piece. I think it's one of your stronger pieces.
For sure.
Some good stuff here. Okay, I'm going to flip through these. Everybody can just kind of know what we're looking at. And then we have some specific things. Got character portrait, celeb portrait, scene studies, True Grit, great film. Some character designs, and which character, I assume?
An illustration.
Okay. All right. First thing is we're getting the common thing of a lot of different things. All right, we've got a kind of a random fantasy character. We've got a character design page. We have cinema studies. We have a celebrity portrait. We have a gun design, I assume in 3D. And we've got a fantasy illustration and a sci-fi illustration. Whenever a client sees this, it is a flag of an amateur portfolio is to have one of a lot of different things. Where if you were to have an entire portfolio of 6 to 10 images of all of one thing, it's going to have a much more professional
well,
appearance.
it just shows you're committed in one direction, right?
The gun is photoshopped. Okay.
Or photo bashed.
Photo bash.
Oh, that's a good photo bash.
Yeah, it's a good photo bash. So right now, I feel like you can go a couple of different ways. Which way is totally up to you.
Depends on what you really like to do.
Yeah. The scene here and the gun and the character designs are all your strongest. I'm going to be the bad cop here and say I would remove the others besides those three because I think they were compromising the overall quality and professionalism of the portfolio. These are great to do. I've done cinema studies, frame studies, all right? But studies don't belong in portfolios. Okay. And this one just is not reaching the same level. There is some issues dealing with the character design and the composition of this scene that ultimately hurts the scene, I think, more than it's helping it and benefiting the portfolio. So, but say that you keep these three. These are quite varied. Again, a sci-fi scene, multiple characters in an environment, a prop design, and a character design. For right now, again, we recommend pick one thing, get really good at that until you can start getting consistent work, then start building in more things that you can offer at that same higher level.
Because think about it, okay, even if we really pare down, we drop everything except this one, and this one. That's still 3 different directions that are, all of these things are hard to get competitive at. So even if you decide, well, I want to be a generalist, I'm going to do characters, props, and scenes. How many scenes can you do per year? How many props can you do per year? How many characters? Like, you see what I'm saying? If you focus your entire year on just the props or just the characters, you'll get way better in that one area than if you try to get good at these 3 things in the same amount of time. See what I'm saying? So I think it's worth it to drop at least one of them. So do the props and the characters, or do the props and the scenes, you know, whichever ones you really love, or the ideal would be to just pick one and really focus on that one direction, characters, props, or scenes.
This is another case where I would recommend working from some briefs, working on a project that could be a project that you make up.
So many students have, or juniors even, have good skills, but they really have a hard time art directing themselves and coming up with ideas that are, you know, that look good in a portfolio. So I recommend that, working from a brief. Nate's asking, in your opinion, which direction is closest to a competitive level, or which, I guess, of these 3?
I'd say that you could probably start, okay, if you had a full portfolio of scenes at this quality of this kind of subject matter, and say you had 6 more like this, I think you could start picking up some A-tier, you know, projects, maybe with some board games based off of some sci-fi stuff, that sort of stuff. These aren't half bad. All right, these are pretty clear. I feel like you have clear rendering, your ability to add layers to things.
I think there's some 3D in here, but you make it look reasonable.
Yeah, you're doing some photo bashing, you're doing some painting. This is very quite normal for character designs. I think you're closer to probably, man, that looks so good. That is the cleanest, most professional thing, but if you could do a whole portfolio and you've got 15 different kinds of weapons and devices.
Yeah, I would
I don't care if it's photoshopped or not. It's great as a concept.
That's not the point. I think it would really, like, you have to be aware. Though, again, when you step into an arena, you have to know what are the expectations. And I'll tell you right now, expectations for people designing guns is that you know 3D.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's just kind of a given if you want to get to AAA, because all the other people do. So you can photo bash it to a degree, but at some point someone's going to ask you for other views.
Yeah, they're going to say model this in 3D.
Yeah. So I would recommend, if this is the direction you enjoy and you want to go in, just start doing some Blender tutorials. There's lots of them out there showing how to do
If you don't
weapons.
want to do 3D, don't do this.
Yeah, don't do guns.
Because that's going to be the expectation. If you want to do designing, then go this way. And I think you can do that. Or if you want to do illustration, that's this direction. So it really is it's kind of illustration, concept art, and 3D is sort of the option there. Which one are you most interested in and that you can do for a long period of time? That is something you have to answer.
Yeah, commit to one direction and then get yourself some good briefs in that area.
Yeah.
And forget about all the other stuff.
Yeah. All right, let's go.
Hope that was helpful, Nate. You have some good skills. You
Yes. Yes. Shamad. Okay, I'm not sure. I'm going to say Shamad. I'm not sure how you pronounce that.
Shamad, if you are here, let us know.
Or Escape Fiend is your name there. Okay, and we've got that in the other window. Okay. All right. Again, we're getting a buffet of options here of subjects and styles. So we've got standalone kind of comic images. We have comic panels, maps, full painted illustrations, sci-fi prop designs, a map-ish illustration, a multi-figure kind of poster art, character portraits, fantasy. So again, anytime that an art director or company sees this, they're going to have a pause where they're going to be unsure about the artist because the artist seems a little unsure what their strength is. And really, the industry is not looking for jacks of all trade that are masters of none. You need to be the master of something. Become the expert of something.
It's okay if it's only one thing.
Yeah, that's fine. Then you can become more competent at other things. I would say that I'm more of an expert at like lighting scenes, character scenes. I'm competent at doing backgrounds and some buildings and some other things. I'm adequate, but I'm getting better at those the more I do. So for this, if you're really serious about doing higher level projects, about upping your career, then again, we need to kind of, or we'd say, pick a lane. Which direction you want to go here? I feel like comics is more of the thing that you like. There seems to be a little more.
At least most recently.
Yeah, you've got this. These kind of have a comic style to them. So I would drop out the other things that don't align with that. And then, again, go look at who is killing it in the industry right now doing whatever your thing is. And then go get a bunch of their images. You were listening to somebody talk about this recently.
It was, oh yeah, by the way, I don't know if anyone's interested. Devin L. Kurtz has a very good interview. I do not know what channel it is on.
Devin?
It's Devin with an I, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Quartz?
No. You're misspelling it. Here, let me do this.
Yeah.
I'm sure most people know who she is.
Okay.
But if you look for this interview, you'll see what she says, where she had to make a choice, like most of us, when you have a lot of interests, is to pick one thing and get really, really good at that thing, get competitive so that you can compete in the market, you can get a job. So that means other things have to be put on pause. And you put all your energy into one area, because if you can't become an expert at anything, then you're in trouble. That's how people spend 10 years not making any progress with their careers, and it's very sad. So we're telling you, we got to make some choices. Pick one thing that you really love and get expert level at that. Don't let yourself be distracted with all these other things. They are not helping you.
One of the hardest things to do, both as a human and an artist, is learning to say no. It is knowing that every time you come to a crossroad and you have the choice between two things, you're both having to say yes to one thing and you're having to say no to something else. And the higher the level of anything you're doing, the more stringent you have to become at saying no. Any athlete at a high level has to say no to a lot of things in order to stay at that level. Okay, so at this point, what's the advice going forwards?
I just don't know what it is you want to do, really.
Yeah.
I can't tell. Okay, so if it's fantasy scenes like this, then you need to drop out anything that isn't a fantasy scene and focus your attention on building a portfolio to get a job, get a commission from D&D or Pathfinder or a company, maybe a European company like that. If your interest is to do comics, then drop everything else and just focus on getting those comic pages. I think you mentioned that you've done comics over the years. Go to the comics page. We should see a portfolio full of pages like this. So, think about it. Only you know. We can't tell you what to do. Only you know what you want to do. Right now, your skill level at all these things is kind of the same. Like, you're not really competitive in any of these areas because you're spreading yourself around too much. So think about this, pick the direction that you really love the most and commit to it. You have to commit because you don't walk into a career like this casually.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of commitment, and you decided, you're determined. It's not going to happen by accident. If you want to get some inspiration for some really good comics pages that are kind of more modern, I really love Cole Marchetti's pages. Go on his ArtStation, or you can pull up Cole Marchetti. Yeah. CH, there you go. And he has some wonderful, really effective pages that you can look at and analyze. Go down. He's got wonderful artwork, but you can see here, like Harry Potter scenes. You can really take anything, any kind of story or characters, and make some pages. Doesn't have to be a whole comic book, but a couple of pages just showing a scene or a dialogue interaction. This is wonderful. If you have this on your portfolio, that's a lot more competitive than what's going on right now.
Yeah, I haven't seen this person's work before.
Yeah.
Has some good expression, good way to just block out the scenes.
Yeah, he's really efficient. I like his stuff.
All right. Well, let's go to number 4. We have Pyro. Okay. Pyro said, "Hey, Clint and Diana, thanks for all you do with the art community. Well, we appreciate it. I would love to get some feedback on my dark fantasy illustration portfolio. What do you think I need to work on for the most improvement? Are there any pieces I should remove from my gallery?" Okay.
Let's take a look.
Oh, I had that minimized.
Oh, okay.
Hey, welcome, Pyro.
Oh, hey, Pyro. Pyro's here.
Okay, so specialize in cryptids and dark fantasy illustration. Well, right off, I see a piece I'm familiar with. Seed of Renewal. You did that art challenge we did on the channel 6 years ago. At this point, I still think it has a nice read to it. Okay. I'd say that you actually have a little more focus with your portfolio than some that we've seen. It definitely does read across like kind of dark fantasy stuff. You've got a few things that break away from that a little bit, like some of the book covers, but you assume that that's what the client asked for, so that makes sense. Now, I also see that you are hitting a ceiling And I think you would agree with me that you are kind of hitting a ceiling. There are certain foundational errors that are occurring in the pieces that until you take the time to really resolve and learn those things are going to kind of keep setting right here at this level.
I think you mentioned somewhere on your page that you have the goal of doing kind of AAA work, right? Somewhere here, or
Yeah, creating work for D&D and
right.
Magic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in that case, yeah, these are things that have to be addressed at some point, because these things are going to hold you back until you do.
Now, the rule of thumb that we apply to any student when they're
Pyro
talking,
agrees. I'm sure Pyro looks from the work. I can just tell this person is an insightful person.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sure you know already what the issues are.
So I want to pull up one of them, and we'll talk about it because I think it just examples some of the points. Let's pull it over here. Oh, the lag is just having fun here.
It's OBS. OBS is awful.
Yeah.
Now, I just want to ask, Pyro, is this a commission that someone asked for specifically? Or is this a personal piece just of yours? Can you let us know? Because we wondered about that earlier.
Okay. So, what I see is that you aren't afraid to put in time. Okay? That's really good. When people aren't willing to put in time, it really doesn't matter about anything else. You're willing to put in a personal piece.
Okay.
All right. So, I'm going to explain something. Maybe you've heard this before, but I'm going to explain it again because we always have new people coming in. And that is the time distribution that you spend on an image and where that time goes throughout the course of the image. So from the first line that you draw to the last detail that you put in the piece, there's a total number of hours. Now those hours for a scene like this, you're doing a full scene, can really be divided in half. And the first half of those hours should be spent in the concept phase. That is where you are establishing all the character designs, environment designs, the composition, the posing, the lighting, the color schemes. You establish all that in the first half. And then the second half is you just rendering it. You're basically just committing to it and doing the full scene. That's where you're doing all of your color blockings, your details, your edge work, your material rendering, right? All that. It looks to me that you've pushed the concept phase to be too small in your overall process. So you're spending maybe 10% of the overall time in the concept phase, and then you're doing 90% in the painting phase. Well, the problem with doing that is now you're having to handle more of the aspects at the same time. Now you're having to handle the perspective and the design and the lighting and the shading all at the same time. And invariably when you do that, or pretty much anyone does that, you end up dropping the ball somewhere. And that's what we're getting here, is that some things are working, but other things aren't working because I think you were just spreading your attention across too many things at the same time. Now, the biggest one, in my opinion, is the perspective. Because faulty perspective can quickly compromise an otherwise solid scene. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of one of those things that it's hard to get past it if it's not working correct. Now, from what I see here, you have an understanding of the principle of perspective, but you need to slow down and fully establish it and make sure that it's consistent. Now, I'm not pointing this out in order to just be mean, but I want you to know exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm going to just draw some lines here. So we have this porch, and this porch has parallel boards. So that is an excellent thing that I can use in order to, oh, the lag. It won't move my brush. Maybe I'll just use the mouse since it's, oh, okay, thank you. So I can get that line, and I can get this line on this side, and wherever those cross. So that gives me the horizon line. Right, that is the eye level, assuming that this whole thing isn't at some kind of tilt. The lag. Okay. Now, everything in the scene needs to work to that horizon line. That is...
It doesn't need to work to that point, but
right.
It has to live on that line.
Well, what I mean by is anything under that line, we've got to be looking down on it. Anything over that line, we've got to be looking up at it. Now, that becomes a problem in an area like this, where we're looking at the top of the barrel of something that is over the horizon line or higher than the camera.
It's higher than our eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, it's not also quite working with the background. It looks like the horizon line in the background is a little higher. Or it might be that that's a hill back there, and that's possible. All right, so that one's a possibility. We also just have this window feels like it is, I don't know, it doesn't feel like maybe that's completely correct there. Yeah, and this one's not quite going off the same level there also as having had sort of a bend. Yes, perspective. So I'm going to recommend, what do you focus on first? Perspective. Now that might mean picking up a perspective book. There's a lot of good perspective books out there. Maybe it's taking a class. We don't currently offer a perspective class, so you'd have to go try to find somebody.
I would go look at Charles Lynn. He's very excellent at perspective. I don't know what class specifically he would have dealing with this issue, but maybe just go look at his stuff in the Foundation Group ArtStation store. And you may find something there that's helpful to you. It's not expensive.
So that would be the first thing. At least that's going to settle exactly where everything is supposed to be, right? The other thing is we've got perspective working in the other way, which is we're looking up at a lot of this stuff in the scene. I don't know why I'm trying to draw a line since it's so laggy.
Just point with your cursor. It's better.
Yep. Well, it won't finish.
Oh, no.
Yeah. No, Photoshop has died. Okay.
Yeah.
It's just because of OBS.
Well, we're having a problem with YouTube. It just gave you an error notice. Did you see that? I don't know what's going on. Can everyone still hear us and see us okay? Let us know. Because the computer just might crash.
No, I've got to close that. Otherwise, it's going to eat up everything.
Yeah. Someone confirm in the chat that they can hear us or see us okay.
Was lagging behind us, so. Well, it says we're still going. Yes, okay.
Okay, sorry about that,
all right.
guys.
Yeah, I'll just try to avoid Photoshop as much as I can then. So here what I mean is that we're kind of looking up, and the vertical is at an appropriate angle, but then we have like these fishing items here, and that they're not hanging at the same angle as the wall, which has that perspective on it. So that's something else that you would need to look at. Now, outside of that, I'm fine with the subject matter range. It all kind of fits within that same dark fantasy theme. Watch your form rendering and the value control. That's such a big one. I still think that this is probably one of the strongest images in the portfolio.
I don't think the values are bad here either.
No, this one is pretty good.
Yeah.
Some of these have really heavy blacks, and it's kind of compromising it a little bit. And the other thing is make sure that you have a very clear narrative. Right now, the juxtaposition of, I don't understand why this werewolf is standing at this bait shop. It's just unclear. And for anyone, the general scene should be understood by just the image. You shouldn't need supporting text.
Yeah.
Or caption or
so
something.
If this is like a scary werewolf scene, I wouldn't draw attention to the fact that it's a bait shop that he's at.
Yeah.
I would just have the scary werewolf front and center in a scary pose with some good lighting. You don't even need the rest. But if it's a scene kind of showing this cute or interesting bait shop, then you kind of don't need the werewolf there. Just some more set dressing and it would be cool.
Yeah. I would drop out, like, I don't think this one is competing. I don't think that is as good. I wouldn't include that one. I don't think, it's just a little, yeah. So the best ones, I still think this one is pretty good. This one's pretty good. That portrait's, I think, better. What about you? Would you add in some of the others?
I think you need to make new pieces. There's just not a lot here. So, okay. The perspective thing, you've got to deal with that. You don't have to become a perspective master, but you've got to just know enough to not make these obvious errors.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Got to deal with this. You cannot get to AAA with this issue. The second thing is, once you address that to like a decent level, take our illustration course. Just go get the self-study. Or, some other equivalent course. I don't know who else has one like it. As far as we know, no one does. But there are other illustration courses. But we kind of have to get some more training on framing, on narrative, on designing the scene. And like Clint said, pushing before you get to the painting part. Drawing everything out, really framing it, composing the scene, make sure it's effective before you commit so many hours.
One last tip, and this is something that I definitely see is an issue here, and it is an issue for most juniors who are trying to get into bigger work, and that is you're guessing too much, you're making up too much. You're pulling too much out of your imagination and not referencing. So in this case, like if this was in class, I absolutely would have you go reference these, I assume it's a sand dune. I'm not even sure if it's sand or water, but that's kind of to the point of you made it up and it's not even clear which one it is.
It can be one or the other. I think both of them would be cool.
Either is fine. But you need a reference for it so that you can paint it correctly.
Like if you defined that, if you gave some more attention to these edges in here and in the creature and getting the form of the creature to pop, defined if this is water or sand, this is a scene that would make a good portfolio piece for a magic card, right? Like this, there are magic cards that have this sort of thing on them. So this, like, not referencing and not putting the time into the surrounding part around the focal point is what's holding this image back.
That push of being more specific, and this is something we've seen across multiple of the portfolios today, that extra push for specificity, that's where the hard work is at. That extra, really it's R&D, research and development. You're researching the subject so you know exactly what it is, and you're developing the concept and the sketches and stuff. That's where that plateau is, and that's what separates from where you are to where you want to be, is that R&D of doing that referencing and the extra studies. Okay, let's move on.
I hope that was helpful, Pyro. Thank you for sharing your work with us. And thanks to everybody who we reviewed so far. We've got 2 more to go.
All right, up next is Urban. Now, Urban, it's good to have you back.
Urban, are you here? Let us know. Yeah. Urban was a student of ours last year?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was
last year, yeah. So here's Urban's portfolio. Now, The only one I'm really familiar with is this one because you created it in the fantasy class. I still think that holds up really well. I think you ought to be pleased. Oh, I see a little skelly back here. Okay, cool.
Still looks good, Urban. Still a good piece.
Okay. Good skills. All right. You do have good painting / rendering skills. If you make things nice and sharp, clean.
None of your proportions are wrong or
Right.
bad. You're always attentive to that.
No. In my mind, there's several significant hurdles or what you consider plateaus that you have to go up. All right. The first one is you just have to draw and paint well, right? Regardless of the subject or anything,
That's just the technical stuff.
Yeah, it's just has to be done well enough that it is clear and clean and the rest. Now you're there, Urban. You can do that. Like that's well done. The next one is the subject choices. Is the choice of the images that you're choosing to do optimal for the goal that you're trying to achieve or the clients you're trying, to attract to you? I think that's where you're hitting a snag. In that some of these scenes, like let's just grab this one. It's well illustrated, but it's too random. So from the outside, I know nothing about this scene. I don't know why it was created, who it was created for, if it's based on a story or anything. All I know is there looks like there's a chrome futuristic centurion floating in a field holding a decapitated bullhead. And that is confusing. Now, I can say that it's rendered fairly well, but
it is.
It's confusing. And I'm going to be clear, images can have question marks. They can have mysteries. They can have things that are not clarified, and they can be good, and it can make you want to know more, or it can be more like this, which is just, it kind of turns me off because it makes me feel like
I just have no idea what I'm supposed to take from this.
So the image subject matter choice is compromising your actual painting ability.
Yeah, your skills are good. It's the choices of subject and composition now that are hurting you. But I think you can overcome that with just some briefs and some art direction.
Here, you did that this year. Okay. So I can refer back to things that we talked about in class since you did this after class. Here's where we're getting into two main issues. All right, let's just talk about the technical execution. Compositionally, we're getting buffering. Okay? Remember what buffering is where you have a lot of individual subjects that do not overlap and they have almost a little aura between them to keep things from touching visually. So this is a tree or something back here.
Mushroom?
Yeah, doesn't touch anything. There's space all around this one, space around that one, space around this one. This barely touches that one, not a proper overlap, doesn't touch anything else. This bear barely, like we got a tangent where everything kind of meets right there around the top of the bear's head. This doesn't touch anything. This doesn't touch anything. Nothing touches anything except for like this guy's tail overlapping. Now the problem with that is that we create a sense of depth by overlapping. And that if we moved the camera closer or we moved some of these animals closer to the camera, then we could have this bear sitting like this. He could take up all of this space and overlap part of that and overlap part of this. And his face would be closer to the camera and we could read kind of the expression. And this could be bigger so his horn can start filling up this space and his body could fill up this space, and then his head could even be closer to the camera, and maybe his face starts to overlap part of the back of this. And now we're using so much more of the canvas and filling it with the subjects, not just random pieces of ground, but with the actual animals. And we're creating a sense of depth because we can tell three-dimensionally this is over that, that's over this is over that, and we know where things are in that. Now, with the values, we're getting some mixed values where we're not separating things on planes. This is one where bright in the sky. Yeah.
It would work.
I know it's a night scene, but if you got a linear dodge layer at like 30%,
if you hit this with some nice blue, man, it would be so
all across
pretty.
the sky. Because we talked about it in class, bad value pairs. The value pair between the background and his wing.
And you're running into this problem where you're kind of putting this little light line around the wings because you're trying to separate them from that sky when you could just lighten the sky a couple of values.
Improve this scene by 200% in 2 hours. All right, so the components are there, but they need to be shifted around and adjusted. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, this is, I believe this is an MTG creature, or at least based on an MTG creature. I forgot what they're called, the big eldritch things. I'm pretty good with the creature. I assume he's in some massive cave. The thing that sort of turns me off is like all of these guys' butts facing right to the camera. It's just not something that really makes me want to engage with the image.
I don't mind the butts, to tell you the truth. I just find it's an odd choice for the orientation of the canvas. Like you have a long canvas, and it seems like you're presenting him as marching through a place and people are kind of worshiping him as he's walking. To me, that kind of lends itself more to a horizontal. But maybe you were designing this to fit into like a card, I don't know, where half of it would be obscured by the text. I'm not sure what your intention was, but to show like a big kind of procession or marching in scene, it would have been nicer to have like a horizontal and you could show more people and more stuff. Yeah.
I feel like that's where you can get more out of the scene, is maybe by adjusting how you're handling some of the foreground elements there. I would consider even taking them out if you could add something else that's not even human, just something
trees,
like a tree or a fence or something just for scale reference. Yeah. Again, we kind of talked about that.
Let's go to the next one. It's class.
Yeah, we've seen that one. We've talked about that one. Okay, this one also, you have a tendency to do juxtapositions of different things, and while that can be done well, if it's too far apart that we don't understand the connection, then it ends up hurting the image. And here I don't know why this thing is in the clouds and what this is. All I could guess is like, is this representing like a robot dreaming of heaven? Again, it's such an esoteric kind of idea. I'm not sure. But if you're going to do it, like, we probably need more definitive rendering, because all of the focus is on this. And right now it's just kind of a collection of random lights and stuff. Nothing's really being designed or resolved here. Yeah. Okay. Definitely some things I like about this. This creature anatomy looks particularly good.
There's some nice things happening.
Some beautiful little wrinkles. The lighting feels very believable. I don't know if you used 3D model or what you did, but whatever it did, you used worked pretty well. But again, we are getting some of that. I don't get the connection between these things. I don't know why this dragon is in a floating library reading. Coming from the MTG background, I would think if this creature is sentient and civilized enough that he
can read.
reads books, that you would probably dress him in a robe or something to show that, because they would generally be attire wearers, right? But we don't. So he has the normal bestial look, but you're also putting the book in his hand, so those don't really go together. Not having a clear idea of like what the whole kind of scene is about. I guess that's confusing me a little bit. Yeah. Some beautiful tones here. All right. I really like some of this. We're getting a bit of that same buffering where it's like there's an intentional amount of space being given between the cloud and the bird all the way around their forms, where unless there's a really good reason to keep it the way it is, I would say double the size of the bird. I mean, it's the most interesting thing here. Let this wing break the horizon down here and let it start taking up more of the canvas because it's the most interesting thing here. Yeah. Okay, so that's...
The takeaway, Urban, here is you have good skills. We knew that when you were in class. We told you so. I think the one thing holding you back now is the briefs that you're choosing are just kind of unrelatable and, kind of bizarre. And you want to make your stuff a little bit easier to digest for an art director, for a recruiter, because I think you have the skills to be working already. It's really just the choices of subjects that are holding you back and a little bit of the, composition, the framing. But I think these are things that you can fix pretty easily. I just want to mention on the subject of this scene, I quite like this. It has like a really kind of magical vibe, right? You got these whales flying around. This woman is holding on to the whale. It's in space. That's pretty it's pretty epic. It's pretty magical. I don't know what's going on with these whales, how they can fly in space. Doesn't matter. But if we have that, what could we do to punch this up, to just make it more entertaining? Some color would be nice. I know it's in space, right? I know. And you could say, it's not realistic to make it colorful. There's literally whales in space. That's not realistic, right? So we can go further. And one thing that would be nice to add color back there, I would take away this lens flare. I don't think that's helping you at all. And put like some kind of colorful nebula back there, some nicer, starry sky. And then maybe you could underlight these whales, like give them a blue tint. Maybe we could suppose there's blue coming off of the surface of the earth. And that would kind of play into the aquatic thing a little bit. I know they're not underwater, but it would kind of suggest
there's like light bouncing off of the atmosphere and it kind of giving this bounce light here. Maybe they have bioluminescent patterns across their bodies. Maybe they leave some kind of trail of glowing magic motes behind them.
Giving ideas, not saying you have to do that, but just an idea.
I remember this old piece by Jason Chan. I don't. You're not going for this, but again, it's a kid riding a magical creature. It's colorful. It's fun. I think that's the vibe you're going for. So I would just find a reason to even this. It's a night sky that's blue. Right, because you're just infusing it with color.
Anyway, just some things to think about, Urban. And I know that you're capable of so much more, so we're just trying to push you a little bit.
Okay. The last one we're going to be looking at is Morgane.
Morgane, it was here earlier. Are you still here, Morgane? Sorry that you had to wait so long.
Okay. So Morgane said, could you give me advices to make a better portfolio for a book cover? I found that I don't have a lot of storytelling with my illustrations, and composition is a struggle for me. I'm going to dedicate full time to art by September, and I would like to know which class you'd recommend me takes. Okay. Full time by September. I don't know if that means by starting September it'll be full-time or it's full-time until September. Either way, full-time practicing art sounds good.
Oh, Morgan's here. Hi.
Hey, welcome. So
Let's
we're going to
look
just open the
at your
folder.
yeah.
Okay. We got to put it over here because I can. All right, first up, nice read. As soon as I open it, I see a lot of skill. I see a lot of competency. I immediately like that you are tackling a variety of lighting setups. We've got like day scenes, night scenes, shaded scenes, lit scenes. We've got people in a variety of different poses, different kinds of costumes. Each one has its kind of little direction. Definitely a classic painting style versus a more artsy sort of take with it. That's good to see. I do have to also say, figures are painted well. Mm-hmm. Beautiful faces, beautiful hands, posing is nice. So obviously that's a strength. No. At this point, since you have so many good pieces that I think are probably more recent, I would recommend go ahead and drop these bottom two and Poison Ivy as well. The Poison Ivy just is not resolved to the same level as we're getting on some of these others. Mm-hmm. And I think it's just pulling things down. I think you could probably keep these two. If you want to keep your Ari fan art, you could probably do that if you wanted to. But these others are definitely, looks like you kind of leveled up at some point here.
Yeah, there's a significant jump.
Yeah. Okay. Now, what were your thoughts on this?
Okay, so off the bat, you have a good eye for what to put in your portfolio, what to leave out. I love a good beauty scene of a character standing there in front of some random environment, right? I started doing scenes like this when I was really getting serious about art as well, and that was fine. And you can get some work doing this. I'm not sure how much work you're getting already, but there is kind of a limit with this. Yeah. So you need, what you're going to find, what I found is really, like, I couldn't do magic cards. I couldn't do certain types of work, D&D, until I did more than just this. Mm-hmm. And you're going to run into that. So book covers are also very, very competitive. And you still need to be able to do more things to do book covers, because book covers of just like a pretty lady standing there, lots of people can do that really well. Mm-hmm. So you got to give us something more. You got to give us the girl and the guy. Then that'll open up like the YA market to you. You can give us just the guys. If you give us like something more magical, like a wizard or a collection of characters like two adventurers, that will give you more access to adventure books. So, thinking about these things is something you should think about. Right. I would also kind of like to see more composition sketches. We kind of don't get that from you, and I'm kind of wondering why that is. So I'd like to see more sketches of different arrangements, because that's something a client would ask to see.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Different compositions. And I think the major thing holding you back right now is that you're not working from different enough or varied briefs. So you need a brief or a couple of briefs that really challenge you, that ask you for something that's not just this, so something else, which is what's going to happen if you begin to work with higher level clients. When you
start working with clients, you're going to quickly realize you're always going to be asked to do something outside of your comfort zone. There's going to be something in that scene that you've never painted before and that you're not comfortable with painting, but you're going to have to do it. Mm-hmm. And you are competently painting things right now that are in your comfort zone. So go outside of that. What else can you do? Challenge yourself.
Nothing wrong. This is beautiful.
No, I don't have an issue with that. This is
totally beautiful. This is your best piece to date, your most so you're getting better. This is great. But now, like, if I gave you an assignment, as a publisher gave you an assignment, hey, I need you to do a cover for Hansel and Gretel, you know, but they're teenagers and attractive, you know, which is like something that would happen. How are you going to, they're in the forest holding a torch.
Yeah.
You know, how would you paint that? If someone asked you to do a cover for a new printing of Harry Potter, that shows Hogwarts, right? Or that shows Harry and, you know, Hermione and Ron doing something. I don't know. Okay, sitting in a classroom. Like, what would you do? So you need to be ready for those things.
Yeah, we really do suggest pick some stories that you're familiar with that a large majority of your audience would be familiar with. Something like Grimm fairy tales, Harry Potter, The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, whatever you're familiar with that you like. And then create your version of that
book cover. Yeah.
It's really common for people to reissue books, classic, well-known books with new covers on them.
The YA people do this all the time, every day of the week.
And if you do it well, the great thing about it is that really any client is going to be able to see that, and they know whether it was done successfully or not because they already are familiar with that story. And it shows, hey, I can do something original, but also you are still going to know what it's related to.
What the story is.
Yeah. That would be the big thing. I'm not going to get into the technical execution because I think at this point it's more of like artistic choice about, I maybe make that edge sharper or I pick this a little lighter or darker. There's so little of that to really go over. I'm not even going to bother doing it. So yeah, mainly subject matter, pushing yourself with that other stuff. I like what you said, which is say that you even get into books and you're doing book covers. It's good to offer other things because you don't know if you're going to have a constant stream of that specific thing. Let's take a look at some other artists. So I'm going to bring up Kate Burmack, some of her work.
We love Kate Burmack.
Kate Burmack, really excellent artist. I've looked at her work a lot, been inspired by it. She does covers for Pathfinder and quite a few of them. So like this is one of the pieces that she did for a cover.
And this type of arrangement is something common for covers.
Yes.
It's like multiple characters in different sizes. Yeah.
Each one of these different campaign setting. I'm not saying you need to do specifically this, but we're just going to draw a couple of points off of it. Multi-character scenes in a location, something worth doing. Some of these that are more, would be considered your classic poster art with like a big head and then have some figures around it.
Yeah.
Again, adventuring party. The person come up here. She does those, but there is not as many book covers as there are general fantasy scenes. So she does a lot of these things too. And that's what you might want to at least offer a couple of those in the portfolio so people know that they are free to contact you about that stuff as well.
And just know that I feel you where you are because I personally, I've always hated painting and drawing ugly things or, weird things or whatever. And unfortunately, when you go to work with a big client and you really want that client, you just got to take what they give you, unless you're like a really famous artist. But otherwise, you just got to take what they give you, and they can give you all kinds of weird stuff that you would never like to paint. But that's kind of the trade-off until you establish yourself, and then you can pick and choose more of what you want to do.
Oh, you mentioned earlier today Dan DeSantos, and this is his work, and he does a lot of things that I feel is adjacent to what you're doing, which is attractive, female characters on book covers. And he does that, but, he does other things too. He does like some fantasy characters, does some MTG stuff. So
you just did a bunch of Marvel characters.
Yeah, that's right. So that would be a thought on those.
So even someone like this has to kind of be a little bit more versatile.
Okay. Well, that is the full review. We'll take a question or two if somebody has one. I've just been glancing up here to see if I missed anything.
Not so far. If anyone has any questions or wants to ask anything, if you just posted again, I saw some people come in later. If you just posted on the Discord like recently in the last couple of days to get a portfolio review and you have not been reviewed, just know that there's kind of an order. We're going through people in order. So these people posted, a couple of weeks ago. So we're going through them, but we're going to keep doing these. We're going to try to do them every week, once a week, and work our way through all the portfolios. So you will get reviewed eventually.
I see a comment. I'm sure you...
Sorry?
I'm going to just wrap it up.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thank you for hanging out with us. I am going to download this video tomorrow and post it up as a regular video. Just cut out any...
of the technical
technical
weirdness.
stuff and the streaming part at the very beginning. So that won't be up tomorrow. And yeah, we'll catch you next week.
Oh, wait.
We're doing it next week.
Hold that thought. There's one last question Morgan just posted. Which class of yours do you think would help me?
I would recommend the mentor group, honestly. I think you can paint well. Mm-hmm. So it'd either be the fantasy illustration or the mentor group. Probably mentor group, since the subject matter you want to do of book covers isn't quite what we have in the fantasy.
That's true. Yeah, that's the one I think would be the best fit.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we can wrap it up. Sorry about that interruption, everybody. Thanks for coming, and we'll see you guys probably next week, right? Next Thursday, we'll try to do it again, but we'll schedule it on the Discord. So if you want to be, informed about when exactly we're going to do these, join the Swatches Discord. You can go to swatchesdiscord.com to just be forwarded there, and then check the events tab, and you'll see them when we've scheduled them.
Okay, thank you so much. See you next week.